feels that, well, maybe they're being left out. So your initial thoughts, this different generation, what do you see as, let's say, characteristics of each of these generations in your observation? So the baby boomers to the millennials to the Gen Zs, and then we have the alphas, and we are already into the betas. So at the beginning of this year, the new generation has started. So characteristics. Let me start with you, Sir.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Alright. So I think this is a great place to start. First of all, I want to say that older generations don't feel left out. I can personally speak for that. I think that is the beauty of how marketing campaigns are run today. So when you talk about the difference between generations, we look at it in 16-year blocks, right? Like from people who were born between 1948 and 64, who we call as the baby boomers. They have certain characteristics. Like one of the prominent things about that generation is that they are still relying on traditional media, like TV or print, those kind of media. Though they do know how to operate the latest gadgets and still tap onto social media and things like that, I think the prevalent characteristic there is depending on the traditional media. And they also really look for customer support, those kind of characteristics. I give an example. My daughter recently moved to a new house in JP Nagar and we were setting it up for her. So when we went to buy gadgets, the first thing I kept asking the shopkeepers is, what kind of customer support do we have post sale? Right? I think that is very strong in the people of, in the minds of people in that baby boomers generation. Then we move on to the next 16-year block, which is from 65 to 80 maybe. Now it's just for convenience that we divide into these 16-year blocks, who are called the Gen Xs. Right? Gen Xs really care about what, how do I get personalized attention? Right? So that is one characteristic that's seen in Gen Xs when they go and look at either buying products or buying services of these. And then we move on to the next block, which is say 81 through 95 or 97. And there what we see is convenience. I mean, these are the millennials that we call as millennials. And, sorry to say this, but I think these are the lazy people. Right? They really want convenience. They don't want to really sweat too much.
We can say that because most of the audience seems to be
So, I think I should take it back then. So when I say lazy, it's more about, see, one of my friends used to say that one of the core requirements for someone to be innovative is they should be lazy. Because they then find new ways of doing things, right? So I think you should take it in that perspective. But the campaigns that appeal to these people are things that really provide them with convenience, product, service of these. And then you come to the last band, which is probably up to in 2012, because people born after 2012, like you said, the alpha and beta generations are still pre-teens, so we don't really talk about them. But when it comes to marketing campaigns, the last, which we call as the Gen Zs, they are more into what we call as the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, the values, social values. And so what appeals to them is, does the company really care for these kind of values? And the product really addresses these kind of values. So these are the subtle differences between the different generations that we see. And that also impacts their response to marketing campaigns.
Interesting, and I really like the point that you mentioned about the customer support and how it has moved on to level. Let's say some of them probably had the innovation side, and some of them have looked at convenience more than the personal.
Right.
Great.
Yeah, so I agree with sir, but if I see from the point of view of who are the consumers or who are the individuals currently companies are targeting at and who are paying for that. So as he said, majority of the payment is happening in two segments. One is either it is baby boomers who are now into their saving phase, pre-post-retirement, and then again into, they have to make a transition because of a number of reasons. And second is, I put it in which where the Gen Z comes into picture. Now, problem with Gen Z is either they are new to the job or they are still onto the job market where they will start earning. But thanks to the abundance of gig economy, they have find out ways and means how to earn for a short term in order to meet the pocket money requirement. lot of students who are putting up in a hostel, they do take part-time work. I give a very good example. All Big Four, not any particular consultancy firm, they take projects from the government and they very clearly specify in the advertisements that they are looking for wage workers for the next 2 months. And as VC sir was saying, that simply collection of data, crunching of data, cleaning the data, and then putting the data in a perspective where their managers will start looking from the point of view report and will say, handsome considering 2 months. But if it is at a year, it is not possible to employ it, and they will not do it. When I say handsome, they will say, okay, we will pay you lump sum 1.5 lakh rupees for this work. You have to finish in 60 days. Even if you take 90 days, we will not be able to pay 30 days.
That's an interesting point, and I wanted to bring it up a little later in
Yeah.
the discussion, but since you brought that touch on the point, today I think today's economic times are reading this news about the outlook of some of the younger generations towards work. They are no longer concerned about tenure, they are more concerned about the purpose of work and money, and that's what they are.
So when we asked a student why you have taken this work, how did you get to know about this? They said it was pasted on one of the firm's website, and they simply asked that looking for gig workers. We applied, and I am aspiring to buy an iPad, which my parents are not allowing me to buy. So therefore, I thought, what is harm in doing this? And I am studying my data analytics paper here. I think it will be helpful for me to bring that skill into earning this short-term money. Point is, who is the service provider, the big four or the fifth one? Who is the taker, the gig workers? The purpose is not here to build a skill or to build a career. The immediate purpose is to have a consumption.
Means to consume.
Okay? And that, what you call medium of consumption, will come from the short term. But indirectly, as I see, to be very honest, there is a possibility that I will not give that live project to my student in my so-called semester embedded curriculum, because I have to make him sit in my class to do the study first and then go for this. He is opting it at his convenience, and he is doing this after evening hours.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, like, how they look at consumption and means of generating the consumption data is a great point. Siddharth?
Thank you. So, you mentioned about digital diversity. So, being in this business for the last 2 years, where we talk to consumers on a day-to-day basis, this is something that comes from experience. So, I think for me, digital diversity is not just about intergeneration. It's also about different industries, kind of industries people work in. So, the way they consume media will also consume digital devices. So, people probably working in schools, they don't have access to mobile phones all the time. So they probably get access to mobile phones when they see. So the way they consume media or the way they consume watch videos or watch reels or watch ads is completely different from what a person probably working in an IT segment, where he has more easy access to stuff. So that could be one. It's again related to the cities that we live in, where access to multiple devices may or may not be available. So a person living in Bangalore in Bihar probably would have access to only a mobile phone, whereas I would get having access to a tab, a mobile, a laptop, and so many things. Then comes the generation thing where the way my mother uses the mobile phone would be very different from what I would be using it for. So we have to look at digital diversity, I think, from multiple angles, and we plan our performance marketing the way we reach our consumers in a different way. So when we are targeting people in Bihar, how do we reach? When we are targeting people in Karnataka, how do we reach? When we are targeting women in the age of 45 to 65, what is the way to reach? I think these have to be factored in. Just to give an added example about access or reach, our customers, largely women, they tend to buy during certain times of the day. Despite all we talking about women's rights and equality and all that stuff, women obviously attend to household chores. So we see that the buying behavior happens either early morning from 6 or afternoons post lunch 2 to 4 or late evening 7 to 2. This is how the trend is. So all our marketing plans have to be done keeping this in mind. So that's the digital diversity for me.
Yeah, the interesting point. I mean, I just wanted to link up to what Dr. Singh earlier mentioned in his earlier address, and I picked that point about and the diversity is not just about intergenerational, but let's say groups, disadvantaged groups, like you mentioned about the funds who have different abilities and how technology sometimes came into help. So that's another point. Yeah, Varun?
Thank you. So, most of the points have been touched by Kena, Singh, and Siddharth. So, I have my views on the generational aspects, like what Kena just pointed out, the behavioral traits of the way the value system, basically. So, it's an evolving value system, and then it need not be contradicting. We have to find ways how we bridge the gaps between the generations. For example, in my house, I have my father who is in, prior to baby boomers, and my son is Gen Alpha. So I see the value system, how they both actually gel with each other, so long as the value system is aligned. So similarly, I would see that marketing campaigns or anything, the changing value system requires the targeted way of handling without contradiction between the generations. That's how I see it.
Look, that's a great point. Let's build on that. So when you say from a marketeer's lens, one of the challenges is to maintain consistency. And so as a brand, the product or the service that you're delivering needs to have that identity or stick to the core promise it is delivering. With if there is a difference in terms of the priorities and the values, any thoughts on how do they maintain that consistency?
Fundamental things to be done is given. Everybody, all generations will do that. So, achieving a certain goal is done. Means of achieving and how we handle that is what we have to now bridge the gaps. So, like Kena pointed out, it is becoming more and more personalized. And also, the previous generations, which is the parenting generation, also has evolved from the previous eras. So now there is a lot of surplus, what I would say, infrastructure than the previous generations, what we had in India at least. How things are moving in the US versus how things are moving in India or elsewhere in the country, the targeted personalization and more it becomes even more personal. The way that it is starting point where the generations are beginning is where how we have to adapt to that one. For example, the alpha generations have started with screens. So for us, screens was television in the 80s. So prior to that, it was radio or even nothing before that. So, but marketing has been happening with radios to screen touch. Now it is self-created branding now. Right? So all the reels or short clips that are happening, and everyone is getting those kind of platforms where they can market themselves. So you don't need a specific marketing agency which used to exist in the past who would control, but now it is getting democratized to a larger extent. But there are downsides to that as well, wherein you need to have content moderation coming in. So are you diluting the brand value? So these kind of aspects have to be taken care. And given that the way consumerism is also expanding, we also need ethical way of handling that in the marketing campaigns where we are cognizant of our value system as a human mankind towards the greener energy and the climate change, those aspects as well.
I wanted to draw something from the business that you're engaged in. I think Siddharth also is a co-founder of Swadesh as a business, which is into handcrafted bags, if I'm not wrong. Let's use that as an example. And since we are talking about personalization as an expectation from especially the younger generations, do you think that's unique to younger generations, or is personalization there now an expectation for everyone? How do you see that? Do you have any examples that you would like to share from your perspective?
More than personalization, I think the younger generation loves brand with a purpose. Okay, so long ago it was not that case. As long as it meets the functionality, and as I think my co-panelists already mentioned, in those days it was more of roti kapda makan. The earlier generation had to stabilize, and there was no time to look at the purpose behind the brand or whether it is sustainable or not. So पहला देखना है कि can I feed myself, can I put food on the table or not. So now comes the generation where it is more sorted out, and they figure out whether this is a sustainable brand, is it damaging the planet. So all those things are coming from this generation. And the older generation still continues with the functionality part, is what my experience.
Is anyone having a contrary view to that, or do we agree that, let's say, the younger generations have more sense of purpose?
Yeah, I agree to the fact because there is a lot of information is available in order to assess whether it is worth doing or not. Earlier we were told and it was presented in front of us where we have no option except either to say yes or no. That process of evaluation or the analysis has come into these kids who are 14 plus years age. And you can give them any product at the very first go, they will not take it because they don't know what they want to know about. So I totally agree with the thought because apart from the brand purpose, they also want to see whether it is usable for them or not. It is useful for them or not. If it is not, I was talking to a kid who was into class 12 and I said, okay, so you are using a mobile phone, how does it help? He said, what my teacher can't teach, Khan sir is teaching. That was the response. I said, okay, so why your teacher is not teaching? No, I mean, what my teacher is not taking the class, I can take an additional lesson from Khan sir video which is available for free. Back came my question, how is your attendance? Not required, like 50-60%. Now my point is that kid is super smart to know that if he is not able to understand anything in that class or which is not being taught in that class, he can get it from Khan sir video which is free. And the moment I'm asking him the attendance, he is saying, fine, 50-60% enough for me. Point is because he is getting that material in front of him which is not being paid at an extra cost, but which is serving his purpose. Similarly, you see their usage. They may go and buy a duplicate product if they feel it is a branded one. For them, the promise is served and the purpose is also served. But at the same point of time, they are also very economical in spending the money.
So, are we to assume that when the younger generations are more driven by, let's say, the utility of the product rather than the, let's say, expressive value of the brand it makes? Is that?
First is utility for sure. For them, brand is there because it is a peer, societal and peer influence of them. But if a choice comes where they have to make a payment or they are the people who are paying for that, they may compromise for that. That is what I have seen.
I think it's also about what kind of financial cushion you have. For example, I have changed 5 cars in my life, but all 5 cars were from Maruti Suzuki. Okay, I have cupboards at home, all are from Godrej. I dare not venture out into the unknown. But whereas my child is willing to explore, she's willing to try because she knows if it goes wrong, it's fine, that is there. So I think that financial cushion is there, which makes the younger generation to explore and check out something else, whether it works or not. Functionality plus purpose. So coming to my brand, so we are into making cotton bags, so which reduces fashion pollution by almost 95%. So if you're using a leather product, leather from cattle to cradle, cradle to grave, it consumes about 150 kg of carbon emissions it emits for 1 kg for about 1 square meter of leather. Whereas the same in cotton is hardly about 8.5 kg. So that's the comparison we give to youngsters and they go by that logic. They like it, they like the purpose behind the brand and they are happy that they are doing something for the planet.
Wonderful.
I just want to add something to the thought of personalization. It's on one side it is about personalizing the product or the service. But there is also this thing in the newer generations where personalization is about, does it match my values? Right? They care about, like I talked about the eco-social values, diversity, those kind of stuff. For example, I'm sure we have all heard about the Gen Zs or the millennials ignoring certain companies because they are patronizing certain countries. Right? We have seen those. So it is nothing to do with the kind of product they want to use. It is their value that this particular service or company or product doesn't meet. So that level of personalization is also coming in. So when we do marketing campaigns, I think it's important to use data to understand those kind of sensitivities among the demographics and position our messages accordingly.
Great. I think we are all agreeing to the point that possibly the younger generations are driven more by purpose and value, and not that the other generations don't care, but probably on a higher degree for the younger generations. And the need for personalization is the theme that has clearly come out. Before we move on to technology, one last point about, let's say, consumer learning aspect. Let me ask Dr. Singh first, because you also mentioned that, especially in a digital landscape, no one really goes to learn. I mean, the situation changes or the environment changes, and then we all learn by trial and error, and that's how we actually learn. Are we moving into a time where the younger generations are likely to be learning faster compared to the other ones? Are the older generations likely to be a little left behind? Are they going to feel that way?
They are too fast. And when I say too fast, you can compare between us and the student who are sitting here. Their navigation memory is much more smoother, much more faster, because they are able to decode that process easily. And second is, they also have a lot of information to understand their navigation, how it happens. With us, when the technology was introduced, it was introduced at a point where we have to go to the technology and see how it is responding to my process and procedures. If it is suitable, I have that luxury to delay it for some 4 days or 1 month or years. As of date, it is not. So these young generation, they carry mobile, they carry the charger. They make it sure that while they are traveling, everything is fine till the time they reach the destination. Why? Because on the go, they want to have all those real-time information which they need, even if it is related to food or travel while they travel. So definitely they are very much into it, and I think because of them also there are a lot of new technology which are coming in for the usage. In the institutions before COVID, we as a faculty were reluctant to get into all digital classes. Now we want more digital classes than the physical classes because of convenience both for the students and for the faculty. Earlier we were having financial issues constant if we have to do something like this, but now I can go online and the students also happy feel I don't want to come, that is good enough to take my online class. So what I am trying to say is the purpose is not lost. Rather, technology has become an enabler into all those requirements, which has smoothened the process, smoothened the experience. And definitely, if it is not smoothened, it is enhanced the experience. And the usage has become. So, as an individual customer from the company point of view, I need the product which is smooth to be used and which is serving the purpose. And I think maybe down the line 2 years, a lot many things will change. If you see the consumption pattern, all these young kids, they are doing digitally fully. Food also is being ordered from Zomato. They don't want to go to the restaurant. They have become so lazy. That's what they say. But their answer is, no, I am getting all that option here, and we should be served to my doorstep. Why should I go with an Uber and pay 250 extra rupees? That is the calculation. And that is happening because of the availability of information and technology.
Yeah, the thought that was crossing my mind was traditionally, we have the Vice Chancellor's conclave, which is about Indian knowledge system. So the traditional ways of learning was always the younger generations learning from the experience and the wisdom of the older generations. So it looks like as we are entering into times where the reverse process might also be happening as effectively. That the older generations are probably learning a lot from the younger generations because they tend to learn faster, especially in the technology. Sorry,
No, I just wanted to add to what Dr. Singh said. I carry my power bank and phone, so I'm glad to be part of the younger generation.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. On that talk about let's say let's say we talked about the differences in terms of their attitude towards consumption, their characteristics, what drives them towards products and services. Now let's come to the technology side. And let me draw from you, because you come from that background. We hear about AI, automation, these are the buzzwords that we all hear. Are there technological advancements that are happening that possibly for common man is not yet known and which could transform things as we move forward? Can you share your thoughts on it?
Sure. So, the AI has been there. I mean, the first AI model was built in 1945. So, perceptron model, which was experimented in World War II. So, it's not new to the scientific community when it has progressed so long. What transformed, actually, neural network was almost dead in 2006 timeline because it reached a point where we could not explain what was happening. It was treated as a black box, highly nonlinear mathematical model. So nobody could explain and predict why it is predicting like that. So it had reached a saturation level. What transformed, it was like a phoenix in 2012 when we had so much of data which was curated with all the social media and all these things in the behind the scenes. And we had cloud technology in place, and the compute had become cheaper and cheaper. So we had so much of data and compute was cheaper, why not build a large network? So that was a transformative era for again emergence back for the neural networks. So that gave the push towards what we today is seeing that the applications of AI, the backbone being the predictions and all these models, machine learning related systems. But outreach to the common people, I think India is in a much far better position than other places because today technology has reached even the remote villages, at least to take videos, sell whatever that they are trying to do. So to that level, technology outreach is there, and in fact, the street vendors actually use QR codes, which is I work on QR codes to identify problems when they don't decode at the industry side. But we have made sure that payments don't fail anytime. So that's the outreach that the common people actually are using that. But now coming to the AI, which is a new way. I mean, if you look back, it is the internet era, then the social media era, and now we are in the AI era. AI era is actually not just impacting common man, it is actually impacting all of us. We don't know how it is going to evolve, but it is definitely going to be in a positive way how we leverage that one. Today, I do vibe coding. I don't rely upon my junior most engineer. I can build an application if I sit and work with GPTs or any of the likes. I can generate code and I can show a POC within 5 to 6 hours. So that is the level at which even the previous generation people are using. I'm sure that you all must be using it for your own work. And how we leverage that one is what matters. And we don't necessarily have to keep on doing the same thing. I mean, there was once upon a time typist as a very prominent job. I've seen the typewriting institutes back then getting the certifications and those things. They're all gone. But that did not stop the banking system to explode. Similarly, AI is going to explode to a larger way, and then the way if I want to extrapolate, there was once upon a time Microsoft thought that I want to put computer in every house. I would say, after the smartphone era, every pocket will be a business unit.
Before you come in, let me add another point because the large number of our audience are also, let's say, entering into the corporate world, entering into it for their benefit as well. For a young person who is just completing an MBA in the industry, or even for an academician who's helping them get ready for their industry exposure, is there any technology that they should look forward to gain exposure to and invest their time and effort into learn? So what would you recommend they focus on?
I think it is obvious. Data. I mean, all of us have been talking about data, how it's playing a big part. In fact, connecting it back to marketing. So for those of the students who are aspiring to go into marketing, or even into any aspect of business, data plays a big part. So I think trying to understand how to use data in applying to their business or their work, that is one area where I think everyone should focus. Coming back to this, how do we use data? Like we talked about the personal preferences, purpose, values, and all that. There is tons of data that's available out there because almost all of us are on the net at any point. We are creating data, we are consuming data. But using this data, using AI to arrive at insights, marketing insights or business insights and all, is going to be the future. I think that is where a lot of focus should be. And if people can spend some amount of time in understanding those and trying to apply those, that would be a big deal.
So managing data and extracting the information out of it. So any specific technology that comes to your mind?
So I think there are a lot of applications today being built around AI. Touch any sector, there is everything that you can actually. I'll not be surprised. The extent in which that people are focusing on building applications is whatever we built in the last 2 decades, applications, the platforms and these things, they are all now backed up by data and predictability. What not about the insights. The data analytics has already been there for the last 5 to 6 years, at least in the developing the dashboards and getting the decisions. Now we are moving into a decision science era, which is becoming a mainstream. It was not earlier. So it is not about this classification or prediction or anything like that, but it is more to do predictions and act upon that result. So that is where we are getting into AI, agentic AI, and then AI agents being built, which is autonomous. So it will make decisions on its own based on the data and the outcome of the previous models. Just to add to that, while you were speaking, it came to my mind. Specific area could be AI tools. That's what he's been talking about when he says agent AI. So tools which allow you to arrive at insights, like Power BI. Those may be the kind of areas where it will be, you don't have to do too much of AI related work, but use the applications and tools that are available to derive insights using the data. So that AI agents or AI tools will be
Great, yes, that's a great point. Now, Siddharth, I mean, since you also are a co-founder, you have successfully established your business. And from a business perspective, in this ever-changing landscape of technology, there's so much available for a business to really tap on. Have you had any experience in terms of, let's say, a challenge that you didn't know how to use it, and then you saw the competitors were really moving forward using technology, and then you kind of felt the need to catch up on that? Is there any, either from your experience or something that you've observed?
Well, there are 2-3 things here. One, cost is still prohibitive. So solutions are there, and there are a lot of vendors who keep approaching us saying that the solution is available that can simplify your process. So we do look at solutions, but we also look at the cost and whether it is useful at this stage at which we are in. We are a pre-owned company now. But having said that, there are some solutions we are exploring right now, working on it, trying to automate certain models. For example, we used to reach out to our customers manually to validate orders. That order validation process is getting automated. So a human-like voice will call you and say, hey, you placed an order, can I confirm your address? And confirm the address, pin code and all. And if there is a change, the customer would tell the change and the AI would record it and update the records accordingly. So this entire process would simplify, it will be more accurate, and we don't require managers to keep supervising that the calls are happening and the corrections are being made. So that takes care of the automation part. Coming to the advertising bit, that has become much simpler now. Running Meta ads, Google ads is much simpler now because they have also incorporated a lot of AI things within their dashboards. So running campaigns is more of automated process now. Once you uploaded the content, it will generate different variations of the ad and start running the show. So I think that's easier now.
Would you say, let's say on a cost comparison, investing in technology is going to pay off in the long term? Is that what you strongly believe in?
At different stages. So at certain, right now for us, automating certain things is reducing our cost and it is paying off also. At maybe after a year or so, we might have more advanced technology being implemented. Definitely. But we are considering all these options right now.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Dr. Singh, a question for you. Because in our business strategy, in management education, we talk about competitive advantage and purpose, basically about building your competitive advantage and resources and capabilities. So, with this emergence of technology, what source gives you competitive advantage? Is it really shifting? What are your perspectives?
So, I give two very examples, not example, but I will relate to it. So, in this strategy, we work blue ocean. My request to student is, have they find or have they tried to identify their blue ocean? Because they are doing MBA, they are acquiring certain skills. The skills which they are acquiring, is it going to be used by the corporates in the coming time? Number one. There are around 37 skill sector companies. If you talk 5 years back or 10 years back, if you are an MBA, that is fine. If you want to enter into Now, from skill council, you can acquire a certification in next 6 months, and by that time, you can also parallelly work along with the certification, and then you can enter into the health sector. And likewise, you name it, government has created a other emerging area is GCCs. So there are a lot of GCCs are coming. And recent example, I can say, we were talking to someone and he met us who is doing valuation for real estate. And I said, what do you do? He said, any firm, whether it be residential, commercial or industrial real estates, we do valuation for them. We submit a report, and they are all ISO and all those certifications required from the architectural point of view. Once we submit a report, it is considered as valid proof that the project is genuine. Construction is going to be real time, and based on that, banks give loans. And to my utter surprise, he is having 350 employees in his organization who is doing valuation for real estate. Out of that 350, only 40 to 45 are from civil engineering and architecture background. Rest are all simply plain graduates who have done short-term certification courses in real estate financing, real estate operations and supply chain, real estate valuation. And he said they are more than enough because I have a dashboard. They work on dashboard, they prepare it, they evaluate it, they analyze it, and they send it back to me, and then we validate it. And I said, how many are BA graduates? He said more than 50%. My point is, sometimes we become so stereotyped in a state line that we forget to see on the side what is more important. My request to each one of them is that if these opportunities are emerging, definitely they require certain kind of skill sets which I may not be having at this point of time, but it is not there that I may not acquire in next 3, 4, 6 months. So that is where we have to go and check it out. What he was saying is, if you go and hire any advertising agency, they will ask you what is the budget. And why budget? So who's your DG? And he said, when we were talking for some professional, he said, people on LinkedIn, they check the ads only from 7 to 9 in the evening. And that is the highest time when the Google charges. So you have to increase your budget. Now, as an individual, I am not aware about it. But all the students who are into marketing and they are looking forward to build a career into this, then how these algorithm works? Do I know it as a student of marketing? No. Then should I acquire the skill? Of course. So we have to be constantly on the watch to see that what are those emerging areas where I can acquire those skill sets and then move on.
Yeah, great point. So,
May I start off?
yeah.
I was mentoring a few MBA students from a business school, so they were just mentioning that we are really interested in performance marketing, digital marketing. I said, wow. So have you opened your Meta account and started running ads? They said, no. So why not? Why do you require a course to do it? You just shoot from your smartphone, you create a link, you open Meta ad account, you put a budget of $1,000, and you start running the ads and you start learning yourself. There's few videos to learn if you want to really learn. I never went to performance marketing class. I learned it all by myself, looking at tutorials and videos because it wasn't necessary. I had to run my company and I was not getting reliable people, and obviously I had to run it. So I learned it all by myself, started running the company. So what's stopping a student from acquiring that skill? Somebody said, I'm interested in share trading, stock trading. I said, can you open your demat account? Why not? So why do you require a class or a course or e-learning certificate to do it? You just open a trading account, invest 100 rupees, buy some shares and see how it works, and sell it off in a few days. You at least know the process in and out.
Yeah, I want to add at least.
Staying on the same topic of the stock market related things. GPTs, I mean, just ChatGPT or even Perplexity for that matter, can get you the competitive stocks, including whatever the metrics that you want to watch out. You can actually build recommendation system on top of that data. Actually, it will give you to the extent that it will ask you, do you now want me to generate an Excel sheet? Do you want to hook it into your existing system, which will take this input and then it will produce your metrics? Recommendation system. So people have been building recommendation system for last 10 years in other fintech industries and all these things. But today, LLMs are getting better and better in getting you what exactly you want. So that's where things are heading.
And with agentic AI, they will also execute.
See, that is the danger. Where things are moving is until this century, human beings were making the decisions and the power lied with the human beings. Now we are transferring the power to the agents which can become evil. That is where now ethical AI and all these things have to come in. Otherwise, are we killing all ourselves together? So that's the important question that we, as responsible citizens of this planet, we got to think a little bit more.
Which sets a nice context to move into the third point that I wanted to bring in. Sorry, so that you want to add something? That we talked about how emerging technology is coming and let's say what from a future investment point of view, what you need to work on, what you need to gain on in terms of knowledge about technology. But along with that comes the challenges with every emerging technology. You touched on one of those aspects about that there is an ethical risk to it. From each one of you, I would like to hear what you think is that number one challenge, more from a marketeer's perspective, not so much in terms of, let's say, someone who might be executing or implementing the technology. From a marketeer's perspective, as you adopt more and more technology, we move into a digital way of communicating with customers. We lose the personal touch with customers. Chatbots deal with our customers, whereas the customer centricity is something that might be wondering. So as we move more into it, and on the other side, different generations get more accustomed to using technology to consume products and services. What's the biggest risk? So let's go around. Let me hear from each one. What, in your opinion, is the biggest risk in that area?
I would say for marketing, we have to be more authentic these days because we have data everywhere. So we have, when I say authentic, it has to be what I say is what I also adhere to, and that is my value system in the brand that I am reflecting upon. So I can't fool around without half information that I am hiding, and marketing campaigns have to be very transparent and more authentic. That's what I see. So there could be traditional companies which lack of data were able to manage, but this is not the era in which that can work. So we have to evolve and become more transparent and then more authentic and more personalized.
So we could be moving into an era where transparency
becomes an important aspect. So there is no other alternative for us. So it becomes a basis for that.
I think it's more of empathy at scale and relevance at scale, because attention is the new currency now. So one of the days when you had to possibly see a TV ad, so now you can just ignore that reel and move on, and it will never show up in your feed probably next time. So what will happen is the companies will end up spending more and more money trying to push the ad, and it does not reach the right people at all. So I think the IT side, one is authenticity, building trust, transparency, that is essential, and making sure whatever we are showcasing, it catches the attention, and they don't just scroll through and ignore it. I think that's very important. Being relevant and empathetic at scale.
Okay.
My take is that breach of data is very important because data are available. So we need to be very clear which data we are using and using. So there was the question of ethical information. Second is presenting that data, whatever we are trying to do with that data, this information should not be given to the clients or to the consumers. And third is equally important is that company should be ready with a frugal mindset that though we are having this data and the information, when it is being given to the market, it will not respond but rather it will react. So we have to be ready with the activity which may emerge out of those reactions also.
So the risk of, let's say, data breach or loss of data that you have gathered is what we see on the questions.
I have a couple of things. First one is, while we are marketing, I think we need to be cognizant of the local nuances, culture, even maybe the language related nuances. I'll give you an example. How many of you have seen this movie called Savali? It was released in 2007. And for those of you who know Tamil, Savaliya in Tamil means I will eat there. And they released this movie in Chennai on Diwali Day. And they made a collection, including Kerala and Tamil Nadu. The total collection was 2.5 lakhs, where the population is about 15 crores. Right? So, lacking that local sensitivity is something that can be disastrous. So, that is very important in our over marketing campaigns or messages. That is one aspect.
So the using the personal touch.
Yes.
Okay.
Because that we see that more and more younger generations are looking at it as personalization. Are you matching my values? Are you matching my purpose? So when we bring in such a diverse audience in picture, we need to be careful about the local nuances and cultural aspects of the And the second part is about the things we talk about: diversity, equity, and inclusion. There is this case where there is this model, US American model called Kendall Renner, and Pepsi did a campaign, made an ad, where in Black Lives Matter protest, the protest is happening. This ad is depicting this. The protest is happening, and then there is this broadcaster who's giving a narrative of what's going on. This Kendall Renner goes and hands out the bottle of Pepsi, saying, "You are tired, why don't you refresh yourself?" That had a huge backlash. It was seen as being very insensitive to the cause, which is Black Lives Matter, and treating this person special in front of that when the protest was going on. Is your relaxation more important than the purpose of this? So these kind of sensitivities also need to be addressed. In fact, that ad became a disaster. Pepsi had to apologize. There are many of these instances when people have been insensitive.
Great point. I think, and I would also like to add like this Bud Light, which had a similar kind of a backlash because they used a transgender person in their ad. So that insensitivity, surely, I think as we move into this digital way of engaging customers, probably that's a big risk and that's a great one. I have another point, and I want to pick on your thoughts on that. What about using your competitive advantage as a business? We look at it from, let's say, data breach and the others. Is intellectual property at risk in this new world? Siddharth, what do you think? And like you build a business model, now we're moving into newer models of business, technology advancing. Nobody could have thought about a Google 20 years ago. We did not have the Zentos and the Blinkits. We didn't think it could be done. But then it's easily copyable. So there is do you see that as a risk?
Obviously, so imitation is definitely possible. So it is important to scale fast and build your own mode quickly and create such barriers that it becomes very difficult to people and innovate. So the moment people realize that you are not moving ahead fast enough and the product definitely has great value, then people can copy it and take it forward. So there is always a risk, and no amount of copyright can save.
Yeah. Is there any safeguards that, let's say from a marketeer's perspective, it can even be in terms of, let's say, your new business model getting easily replicated by someone else at better scale, maybe with better capital, better capabilities, or your digital campaigns can easily be replicated by someone else. So are there any safeguards that possibly a business can look at?
Yeah, so it's an important question at this point in time in the era in which we are living, moving into AI way. So the question comes is, when AI generates content, who owns that? So does that intellectual property rights hold with the GPT owner, or is it lying with the people who are giving the data? Nobody has an answer today yet. So gone are the days when we were building little tiny models. I mean, we are still building, but to protect our IPs in our products, there has to be distinguishing factors so that our value doesn't diminish. Apart from leveraging these big GPTs, LLMs, what we call, and multi-channel, multi-dimensional models that are coming in, today we can't train that in a small capacity. It can be done by Amazon's or Google's or alike. So individual capacity, people cannot build the model which will, DeepSeek was one of the challenge that overtook that part, but still we don't see that happening everywhere. So contrary to that one, people are thinking that why do I need that much big model? Can I break it into tiny models? So which is going back to the way how things were prior to a couple of years back. So both are happening. And the IP is very important for any sustenance of an organization for its competitive edge for sure. IPs are happening, but these are some of the important challenges that we are also facing. So what we were building for 3 years was replaced by the one model which Google Gemini built. And I have spent 3 years working with doctors, annotating thousands of, up to a lakh or and a half. But those models are coming out very freely today. So what is the value that we created in 3 years and is getting eaten up by one big model? So this is the way that we are right now in. We still have an IP for that one, but now this is a big model. So larger shark eating the smaller fish. So how do we protect our IPs?
Yeah, I think that's a big risk, and also in terms of with AI coming in, the authenticity of let's say communication can also be at a risk. I mean, it's like as a consumer we can't differentiate what's AI generated and what's real. We will be in the world of fakes, and that's a big risk.
I want to add to that.
Yeah, sure.
There are models which will distinguish those two as well.
But that's not accessible to the consumers.
No, we can build that.
So
So that will be our,
next generation.
generation.
Next generation. On that, since we are, let's say, talking about technology, businesses using technology, will we give a context to it? Something that made me think a lot about what we are getting into. There was this news when the geopolitics was heating up, sanctions with Russian oil and all that. There was a news about an IRS business suddenly getting locked out because Microsoft pulled the plug and then the access was gone. And then, so at the end of the day, we talk about all technology, digital media, social media, but isn't the control in the hands of a few powerful companies? So isn't that a risk for, let's say, small, medium enterprises or any market here to consider that you could be putting your whole future in the hands of someone else? Because if you, let's say, take technology as your forefront of competition or your main theme on which you're coming. So you see a risk of that?
So there is a risk. So there are people who work at underwriters, and many of people sitting here are aware about it. So when a medical claim or a medical insurance policy is being designed, it is designed keeping in view the generic environment and a particular age group of people. Okay? And suppose I say medical insurance of 20 lakh rupees. But when a claim is made, the same underwriter enters into the nitty-gritty to see how out of that 10 lakh, 20 lakh rupees of medical claim can be minimized to the lowest possible level. And when I was talking to the senior vice president of Max Mumbai, he said that is what underwriter does. So I said, but at the time of selling the medical policies, we are putting the maximum slab, we are giving all the information. But then he came the question, did you get 75 page document given by Max Mumbai to you? And I said no. So he said there is a crux. It has given all the conditions which the same underwriter has written, and when you make a claim. So I said, where is that? We have given all the information in advance to the clients and said, please read the documents and then sign it. It is also the responsibility of that insurance agent to inform it, but he is not done. Company is saying, we are paper. Now question comes, is that underwriter performing his duties as per the given policies? Yes. Is the company working ethically? Yes. So who is at fault? And you know how they do a kind of bidding in a company where they assess how much money has to go if this number of percentage of medical claim will come into picture. And if it exceeds their values, their objective is to bring it down. But when you see the marketing act for medical insurance, for example, Paisa Bajaj, and all those insurance companies, you see the terminology which is being used, the maximum benefit at a minimum possible price. But they are trying to give maximum benefit at the minimum possible cost to the companies.
Yeah, sir. The dependence on technology and the technology getting probably in the hands of a few is the other part and the legal part. So we talked about number of these challenges, let's say in terms of the ethical angle and the need for businesses to address it, possibly for future generations marketplace. Widely based on technology, it's equally important to teach them and train them and imbibe that culture of ethical decision making as well. Now, let me move very briefly, since we are running short of time, about, let's say, bridging this gap in terms of these challenges and as academic institutions are talking to the academia. Your thoughts in terms of how do these two worlds work together? Any, quick thoughts which, let's say, can be a contribution from the academia, which can help groom a future generation of managers who suit the requirements of the industry. So, any specific thoughts? I mean, let's say, let's start with here.
I think it is absolutely essential for academia and corporates to work. When I say that, it may sound like Bangalore and but there have to be very pointed engagements where corporates are invited to not just come and do some campaigns and go, but actually create meaningful engagements with the student community in the college. For example, when we were in Sun Microsystems, we ran a campaign for open sourcing a particular product, which was called Solaris. And we put in so much effort to go and reach out to as much as 130, 150 colleges. And everywhere we created what we called as Sun Club, where the students were asked to drive those initiatives. So that engagement has to be very tightly coupled. And what kind of engagements happen between corporates and colleges have to be defined based on the context. For example, I'm sure you have programs where internships happens in different companies and all that. But what my experience with bringing in interns in companies has been, it's a company's fault, it's not a college's fault. They are of very small duration. That doesn't really help. Right? So when you're looking at internship programs, if you already have long-term internships, great. If not, I think that is something that you should do, where you get corporates to give meaningful practical experience to students before they come out of college. Right? So those tightly coupled engagements is what
Dr. Singh, I'm sure there's something that's very close to your heart.
So I have 2-3 answers for it. Of course, I would totally agree with this. This summer internship or winter internship doesn't turn into actual result which we are looking forward for from the career point of view of the students. So the related terminologies are either companies give some kind of mobilities to the prospective clients and to the institution, or they create a, rather than summer internship, they create a position called manual training